Dear Diary, mood, feeling artsy.
Film school diary, my 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 film school diary.
Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about my second production workshop. So if you watched the video before this, we talked about how we did production workshops for school, where we had about 4 weeks where we had to go through and do production workshops with the whole class. And the way they did it, we would do like a round robin type situation where we switched out directors, switched out cinematographers, switched out writers, switched out everything. Everybody moved around to different positions so we all could learn everything as a whole class. So the first week we did, I was the assistant director, which was a hard day for me. And the second week was actually very fun for me because I got to do one of my biggest passions, which is art production, art direction, set decoration, essentially, set deck, whatever you want to call it. I got to do that, which is one of my personal favorites. I love building a world. I love building scenery. So I was lucky enough that I got to do art direction for this film. So what we ended up doing was the director was going to be Omar, my classmate. I've referenced him before. Here's a photo of him, not actually shown in this photo. So he had an idea for a film that he wanted to do. He had this concept he wanted to do, kind of like a girl fight club type situation. And he had these two actresses from our class, well, not from our class, but from our school that was in the same class region as we were. And we were going to have them kind of getting hyped up for their fight, and we were going to do like a whole, like, very grungy. The lighting was going to be like greens and blues and real dramatic, and it was going to be very much a stylized type film. And I was super excited because I love Fight Club. I am such a sucker for those kind of movies, so I was so on board to be art directing for this. He had this idea that he wanted the room to kind of feel like not realistic, not like a real world. He wanted it to feel very much like hyper, kind of dramatic, hyper, like edgy. And he really wanted it to feel kind of like not something you see in our normal everyday life. He wanted it very stylized. So I stepped up and I was like, I love this idea. All I need is an actual place to do this and I can decorate it. And I am so here for it. So what we ended up doing from my standpoint as the art director, what I did was I went to the dollar store and I found a bunch of like newspapers, like pages from books, stuff like that. I had a bunch of stuff that we had that we wanted to put on the walls. Because his apartment, I went over after class and looked at his apartment, and it was a loft, a big space. But the problem was is that realistically it was just white walls, very basic, very boring, nothing too exciting. It was just a apartment with white walls and nothing really there that would scream edgy, super stylistic, super stylized, like Fight Club type movie. So I started papering the walls with newspapers, books, like pages from books, all kinds of crazy stuff. We had it completely covered. The walls were unrecognizable. I took some paper tape. My favorite art direction tool is paper tape. So like if you're getting into art direction, get some paper tape, masking tape, whatever you want to call it, put it up there. Didn't really stick to the wall. At least I didn't notice. I've never really had a problem with it. We stuck it there. Boom. The walls were drastically different. It looked crazy, it looked chaotic, and it looked messy. From one of my personal projects I was working on like a psych ward type situation for one of my personal projects. So I had a bunch of leftover things. I had like Rorschach paintings, stuff like that. So we had a bunch of Rorschach paintings on the wall. He did not really want us to be damaging the wall because he wanted to get his security deposit back. And so I had to really figure out how to maneuver around the space without putting holes in the walls, without putting dents in the walls, stuff like that. So we ended up doing paper tape. I taped the frames to the walls. I taped all that stuff up there so it wasn't falling. Everything was very much where it needed to be, and it wasn't damaging anything. So I will say, we had this really cool little moment that we did not get to replicate on camera, sadly, because it was just happenstance that it fell the way it fell. So one of the Rorschach paintings I had on the wall in a little teeny lightweight frame, and it was only hung up by tape. It was very delicate, very gentle. And one of the scenes, the girl punched the other girl, hit her in the shoulder, knocked her back, hit the frame went flying. And it looked really good, but they did that during rehearsal. And so our teachers are like, Jay, can you replicate that? Can you get that back up there? And I was like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know if I can do that again. We tried, but there was no way to get the tape to be just unsticky enough to fall down the same way twice. I was lucky enough during this project to have Carlie working with me as wardrobe because he also wanted he wanted to be messy. He didn't want these girls to feel clean or wholesome. He wanted to be messy. So she ended up bringing a bunch of her old clothes over, a bunch of extra clothes she had around from that what they were going to be wearing, and then all the stuff we just throw everywhere. So we had papers on the wall. We had clothes everywhere. It was a mess. They lit it so beautifully, and it looked really, really good. It was one of those projects that I'm so sad I wasn't better at taking doing photos and taking more photos of my art direction work because it was so beautiful, and I absolutely loved how it turned out. Sadly, I do not have photos to reference this, and I do not actually have anything to show you guys today, sadly. In reality, this would be a very short episode if I did not have a special guest to share with you guys today. Actually, I have two. So, we've referenced Omar before. Again, here's a photo. He is not actually shown in said photo. This is a fake photo of someone who is presenting as this character in this story. And I am lucky enough to actually be able to introduce you to the real person who directed this movie. He is coming from Zoom to talk to us right now. Here we go. It is time. We are finally going to be introducing another face reveal of Omar, who is actually a very cool guy, one of my oldest friends from school. And this is him. Take it away.
What's going on? How's it going, J-Rex? Been a while. Omri over here, and yeah, glad to be chatting with you, man.
For sure, for sure. So Omri is back from school. He like always had the coolest ideas, and we only got to really work on one project together, which ended up being one of our production workshops. Even though we tried to work on more things together. Like throughout the years, you're one of the few people that we've actually like stayed in contact with. You were in my feature film, my last documentary you were in. You
Oh
did,
yeah, I remember that. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so like and Omri has not stopped working, and he's actually very much doing some cool stuff. So you want to show everybody what you kind of do and like what kind of filmmaking you're into?
Yeah, totally. After I did school with Jay, I started a production company, and yeah, just kind of been involved in all sorts of media. I've made like 3 feature films since then, a bunch of television shows, a lot of those in development. We do a lot of social media stuff. We have 30 Snapchat shows that air like 3 days a week, a bunch of Instagram and TikTok channels that have millions of followers. And yeah, just always trying to kind of keep our finger on the pulse and find ways to make money in this crazy industry on media in any way we can. And yeah, just always kind of looking for what's the new thing and what's the new hot shiny toy everyone wants to jump in on. And yeah, we just try to kind of find opportunities in every facet we can, other than just the sort of traditional theatrical films, which is kind of a bit on the decline right now, so no regrets.
So in our project, we had in between our actual real school projects, we had to do our production workshops, and they had this weird system where we had to do about like we had to switch positions throughout things. And so Omri actually took charge of one of them. I cannot remember exactly what we called it, but I know
I like
you came to me.
Climax.
Was that was like the origin of like what you ended up doing later, right? Like for your thesis?
Yeah, it was like a short film project of like what the thesis was that year, I think.
Yeah. And I remember you like right out of the bat, you came over to me, you're like, set decorate for me. And I'm like, okay. And because you're like, you can make my house look like it's like a weird girl fight club kind of like crazy mess. And like that's what I always respect about you is you knew what you wanted and we all like we could figure it out. And it was really interesting because your basic concept, if I remember correctly, was it was almost like a girl style fight club where it was two girls who were just like, let's fight. And we ended up getting actors from the school who we would continue to work with throughout our time there. And you had like a very specific vision. I don't really remember who was cinematography DPing for you. I don't remember but you had me and Carlie in charge of like your set deck, and
Yeah,
we got those books, and I just ripped the pages out. We we
I
plastered with like
remember.
Dracula. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I remember the whole apartment looked completely unrecognizable. Like the whole walls were littered with papers that you guys put. I remember. I feel like I like so every now and again go and look at like old short films I've made just like for like nostalgia's sake. And I feel like I remember seeing that one a couple of years ago. And I remember being like, this wasn't too bad. We were pretty good at a young age.
oh no,
And you
for
guys did a
sure,
really
for
good
sure.
job. You made it look crazy. So
Yeah. Honestly, and it was a really cool concept because I feel like everybody else for production workshops were doing really simple, silly kind of stuff. And you were like, no, 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 I want my like thesis concept. Let's start this off as a good basis. And
Mhm.
and I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was like because they were like hyping each other up, right? The girls.
Yeah, I feel like it was like, let's see where these girls live. And like they had this weird conversation that was like a scene from the thesis short film that was written. Um, and it's almost funny. I almost feel like the stuff you guys did ended up like looking better than the final film, just from the design. But yeah, I remember it was just like a conversation to kick off the movie just about their whole world and stuff like that. But I remember I really like what the most important element definitely was the design of the world they lived in and kind of using that to kind of show who these people are. And yeah, I think you guys did an awesome job. I remember that. I
Yeah,
remember
no,
I was like, wow.
yeah, it was fun. And like, it was a shame because I really wanted to work on your thesis, but I think we were shooting the same week. So I had to shoot my thesis. That's why we
I
didn't work
think,
together again.
yeah. Yeah, because
Arguably,
I feel like I definitely would have wanted you as the production
yeah.
designer on the
Because
main one. Yeah.
I remember you asking for sure. And I wanted you on mine, but just the timeline sadly did not work. They put their two
Yeah.
most bizarre films on the same week. um,
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So I am curious, since you did direct one of the production workshops, on this little documentary series, we're talking a lot about how it was with the teachers, what they were like. Our teacher, who I will be referring to as Terry, he was a bit of an interesting director and he kind of was hard on us. So I'm curious, how was your experience working with him as far as like the hot seat and stuff like that?
He was I think I feel like I learned pretty quickly that I had to be like, I'm really good to get most of my education from making stuff myself and renting a gear out and using getting permit access. I did feel like I'm trying to remember if like I feel like he would just kind of fuck around and tell a story. It was a lot of his back in my day kind of archetype teacher. I feel like the only one thing I actually remember that he said to me, he said two things because I remember taking diligent notes because I cared so much at a young age. But the two things he said that I actually feel like stuck with me, even though I wouldn't look back at him as like a teacher, I am like, this guy was awesome or I learned anything from, but he was always like, sell the sizzle, not the steak. And that always stuck with me of just like, sell the best element of your movie rather than what it's about. And then he was like, make every film like it's your last, which is kind of just like a bogus thing to say. Besides that, I don't think I learned anything from him. He was funny. I came to class really high sometimes. So I always thought that was a hoot.
I honestly, a lot of people I think had similar experiences with that teacher where we learned a lot in spite of him and like from each other
Yeah,
almost. I feel like we learned a lot more from working with each other as people. And he was kind of there to just be like, but here's a fun anecdotal little slang from back in the day. And it's like, okay.
pretty much.
Um,
Yeah, pretty
yeah.
much.
Yeah. And I remember also with those projects, it was interesting because it was the only time as a whole class where they forced us into a big project. They kind of put us all together because normally we were in our little like group of four. And so like it was
Yeah.
interesting to see everybody. I remember one of the girls who I didn't really work with very often. She came over to me, this girl, I'm gonna call her Jan. She came over and she's like, you're in the middle of a scene, you're filming this, you're filming your thing. And she nudged me, she goes, Jay. I go, what? She goes, you want an orange? And I'm like, they're taking a take right now. She's like, do you want an orange? Pulls out a clementine. And I'm like, no. And so that's I think
That's
the weird kind
hilarious.
of characters, the kind of weird characters you get. We're doing art here, and somebody's like, "You want a snack?" And I'm like, "Not right now. Later, yes, but no. Come on, we're filming.
That is
It's
so
wild."
funny.
Yeah.
It was
So
also
I
a
have,
very interesting class because like it was mostly not Americans. It was all different people from different cultures. And like we
mm,
always like
yeah,
yeah, just a really wild, eclectic group of people.
yeah. No, no, no. We had like a really cool group of people, and it kind of forced you to. Because like I came in right from high school, I was very young, and it's
Mm,
interesting to like get into a big group of people that you would not interact with normally, like just people that
for
you
sure.
wouldn't have run in. And I think it's very important that like we were able to do that. So just outside the production workshops, would you have gone to film school again, or do you think it was it worth it for you, or was it kind of like did it waste your time?
That's a great question. I don't think I have any regrets because I'm happy with where I am at this point, but I definitely could have like would have benefited from actual business or economic skills. I feel like when I started my business, I like only knew film. So that was like you just had to learn as you built a business. And then yeah, I don't have any regrets. Maybe if I got into a better film school, like I would have went to the better film school. Like, I feel like everyone got into the school we went into. Um, so I don't know. I uh, I don't know. I also only went for 1 year
Oh,
and I
true, true. Yeah, you
left.
did. Yeah, true, true.
Right. So I don't remember. I don't know. I would say I probably don't have any regrets. No.
Mhm.
What about you?
I honestly, when it comes to the school, I'm glad I went for the connections I made, but I don't feel like I needed to necessarily do that in a school environment. I don't feel like I needed to put myself into that environment. I could have just forced
Mhm.
myself to get out there, but I probably wouldn't have. So
For
I don't
sure.
regret it. Also, on some level, I have a degree I can put on my wall, and my parents can be happy, kind of thing. You know,
There you
it's one of
go.
those things where at least I did it. But I'm more happy with the people I met there, especially for my first year.
Yeah.
I did do the second year, and I got one extra project out of it for the most part. And honestly, a lot of it, the project was very much the school telling me that my character seemed too gay, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, dude, the character based off of you seems a little gay, and I'm like, and so
That's
like
so
a lot,
funny.
it
The
was very
times
weird
have
to see.
sure changed.
Literally, no, literally that one blew my mind just because it was what 2012 and 13, like that time period when we
You know,
went
like
there.
that sounds like still an inappropriate time to say it.
Exactly. Because I remember during my thesis that year I was with you with your group and everything. Um, my lead actor, I don't know if he was some form of part of the LGBTQ,
Okay.
but the directing teacher's like, why'd you cast a gay guy for this? And I was like, why does it matter? It doesn't matter. And he's like, it does to me. And I'm like, as a queer icon myself, I'm like, I don't think it matters. It doesn't really matter to me. And it's really interesting to look back on how it was a certain level of there was a lot of weird kind of problems. And I am doing a video right now with one of our girls we went to school with about like the blatant sexism, the blatant bigotry. And it's in the industry in general, we've changed so drastically after like a lot of the big movements. We've had to change. And it's for the better. It's much more inclusive in theory.
It should be, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I don't know, I think it's interesting to see the people who are supportive of other people. And that's why I always felt like we were very good friends because you were always a very supportive person. No matter what you did not care, you were very much like inclusive. And we did like, for the most part, not like it was a problem, but like, I could see how it would have been a problem for other people. Like if we would have had different classmates, essentially, like it was some of the teachers were a
Mhm.
little bit old fashioned.
For
But
sure. That's a fact.
yeah, and like honestly, like if I would, I'd probably go back, but I'd rather go back as a 30-year-old than a 18-year-old because I'm like, as an adult, I'm like that would be fun. Just a couple weeks, just shoot something and just see what happens.
I
That's
know,
fun.
right? You kind of like
Yeah,
look back and you're like, that was pretty cool that you just got to go make shit, like, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Didn't have to worry as much about bills. Didn't have to worry about as much. Well, I mean,
Yep.
still had bills, but like it was like this was actually the full time career.
Not
You
like
didn't have to worry.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You at least
Yeah.
had somewhere to show it. um,
Totally.
Yeah, I also want to get your opinion on this because I noticed that they said this a lot of once you're out of school, you're no longer your colleagues with our like we're colleagues with our teachers now. And I've noticed that like anytime I try to reach out to them now, not a single person is helpful. They like actively are like almost hindrances. Like it's so weird. Like one of our writing teachers, I messaged her just about trying to find an agent kind of thing, which I understand is probably not appropriate. But I'm like, you're my teacher, help me. And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's just so interesting how quickly it goes from please teach me everything too. Get out of here. Don't talk to me anymore.
Is that the producer teacher?
Oh no. That was one of the writing teachers. I don't
Okay. There was
yeah.
like one female producer teacher we had that was actually awesome. And I forget her
Oh,
name. She
yeah.
was awesome. Like I had a lunch with her. Like she was very cool, but I don't remember her name.
But
Yeah.
yeah, she was pretty cool. Some of the teachers were really helpful, and then some were wild. Some were just
Huh.
wild people. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us with this production workshop discussion. I really do appreciate you stopping by and doing a face reveal. This is my good friend Omri. So thank you so much. Do you have
Yeah,
anything you'd
no,
like
it
to
was a
plug? Do
pleasure.
you have anything you'd like to
No,
plug?
no,
Any project? Cool.
everything's good. It's like this was a nice little memory lane thing. My production company is called Fat Camp Films because I met my business partner at a weight loss camp, and that's where all of our stuff is. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, go check them out. So that was the real life Omar, who we can now start referring to as Omri. He is, again, a really cool guy, so go check out his work. He has some really cool stuff out there online, and overall, really is a really good friend, and I'm just so proud to know him. He's doing such cool stuff. You guys know I do try to bring in as many people from these stories as possible. So far, I have not been able to get a lot of people in here in these videos, sadly. I'm trying. Don't worry, I'm trying. I'm trying to get more people. We have referenced Cece before. We found out her name was Carlie, and I am excited to be able to bring Carlie on for this episode. Carlie is my helper during this project. She was the wardrobe, and we worked very closely. She was able to help me with the set deck, and honestly, she did bring a lot to the project, including her, very fun styles and very fun looks. And so I did really want to bring her on so we could discuss how the project working, what it was like working together, what it was like having two departments kind of working in conjunction with each other. This is one of those things where we got to work together, and we worked really well together. And luckily, we did get to have some time where we went to the set together. She let me go through her clothes, let me pick out what I wanted to hang on the walls, what we wanted to throw on the floor, what they were actually going to be wearing. Together, we kind of got to build the whole look of this movie. And like Omri said, it was one of those things where he loved the way it looked so much. He really wanted us to be able to include more and be able to be a part of his thesis. Sadly, we weren't able to do that, but we did work really well together and have a lot of fun on that project, kind of getting a bunch of stuff thrown together. As to people who really do care about the way movies look and really do care about that art form, honestly, that is like what we both really thrive in. We are both filmmakers and writers on our own, but we do both really love to make a film look a certain way, which is becomes very apparent in the work that we start putting together. Once I start having more films to show you guys from that time period, you'll start noticing me and Carlie both do work a lot, like very heavily on the stylized looks. We like a lot of projects that like have a very specific feeling from a very specific type of genre. And so this is the first time we really got to work together on this. Because up to this point, a lot of our projects were all very much rush, rush, rush. Think about it later. You don't have time to really make it look good. And this project, we did get to take some time and spend that time really working on the film, working on the way it looks, and working on the set and the wardrobe.
Hi guys, I'm back again.
Carlie is back. She was in during our set deck day. She, I think, was in charge of wardrobe, and we wanted to have a lot of clothes all over the place, so we ended up actually doing that together.
Yes,
I remember you
and
brought a
there
spiky bra.
I did. I brought my spiky bra. So it was 2012, and spiky lingerie was all the rage. And I went to the fashion district in DTLA, and I got a bunch of stuff. I was wardrobe. Jay was set decoration, right?
Yeah.
And we collabed together. I love doing that stuff with Jay. Jay was also like head of our department on my thesis. So yeah, I was the wardrobe, and all I did was bring a bunch of my clothes. That's what I did because I was like, I think this will fit. And I had a bunch of bright neon stuff and all different kinds of like lingerie and cute little dresses and stuff. And literally, I think what I did was I brought it all in a bag and I just threw it on the floor. Yeah, I mean, like I guess I was wardrobe, but like they had their own wardrobe.
Mhm.
And I brought stuff if they wanted. No, somebody wore the bra.
Yeah, I think so. I want to say the main girl in it did.
Yeah, she wore
Um,
the bra. So we did it that way, and I was like, here's your options. And that was a really oh, it was such a nice break. I remember thinking, this is fun. I love collabing, with the director that was on this project, and I love working with Jay, and like I loved our cast, and I loved just being silly and goofy and finding like a really cool like mix between like just art. Like it was all different kinds of art all at the same time. And it was such a nice break from being stressed out. 2 4 7 3 6 5. This
yeah.
was when was this?
It was in between our, I think I want to say it was right or before our first official digital project.
Yep.
Because at some point I want to say because we were together as a crew for a while, but then they did switch us up probably after these. So I want to say it might have been one of the last hurrahs for the Razor Blades as an
Yeah,
official foursome.
it was a nice break, and there wasn't a lot of pressure, and I just remember it was easy. It like not that it was easy, but it was easy to work alongside everybody
Yeah.
that was in that room. Everybody respected everybody. They respected your vision, which I know is, obviously very important. They respected what I needed. I remember the director was like, "Do you have anything that you can just bring?" And I was like, "Here." And I just
Mhm.
brought, like so
Yeah.
that was really cool. And I loved it, and it was a fun time.
It was. It really was. And I'm glad that we were able to do that. Sadly, I wish we could have done Omri's actual official thesis because he did the same concept, but you were working on my
Just
project that
said
week and I was working on mine.
you just said his real name.
Oh no, he said it all right. He said it in the
Oh,
video.
oh, oh,
Okay. You're good. You're good. You're good. Thank you though for keeping the integrity of the show together.
well
No,
done.
he
I'm
says
your
it. It's
good
fine.
scripty.
Yeah, we officially have a Carlie and an Omri as far as official name
So yeah,
confirmations.
Omri. I guess I kept saying director. I mean
Oh,
Omri.
you're good.
Omri.
Yeah.
Um, is it what did you say? I completely forgot what you just said. Yeah, I know you said his name, but what did you say?
Um, I was saying how we both would have wanted to work on his thesis film, which was the same concept,
Oh
but in
yeah.
reality, it was the same. They put it the same week as my production, and you were already hired on mine, and you weren't leaving. I wasn't letting you go on that one.
We literally didn't have time. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't,
Yeah.
and I think I remember him saying, "Damn, I wish I could be on yours." Like, damn,
Uh-huh. Hmm.
but
Yeah.
like sometimes I feel like that system was put against us because they knew who worked really well
Hmm.
together. And I know
Hmm.
we have to pick our own days, but I feel like they knew it was gonna cause chaos. So we ended up with
Hmm.
didn't work with all that
Hmm.
much, like
Hmm.
in close quarters, and then things got crazy and people started fighting.
Should we end the recording then? Do you have anything else you want
Um, that's all I got to say right about
to? Okay,
this.
you're good. Okay, we can end it there. Boom. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carlie. I do appreciate you being part of the series and sharing some of your insight from working in the wardrobe department on this film Climax. I do appreciate you coming by and talking to us about how it was working together. So I will say, when it came to art decoration, our school did not really have any spots for makeup, hair, things like that. And they kind of put me as the art director in charge of that, which I was okay with. I am a drag queen and I have done makeup forever. I used to do that back in my old web series. I would do the hair and makeup, all that kind of stuff. So I know how to do hair and makeup, so I do not mind it. I've referenced this before that I ended up doing a lot of hair and makeup for these projects. And so this was one of the projects that it was very heavily like I was in charge of hair and makeup and things like that. So we had our two ladies who were in the cast, and they were gorgeous. We loved them. They were super awesome. We did work with a lot of these girls over and over again. They were in the acting class that was kind of like almost like our sister class. We were the filmmakers, they were the actors. So we worked with them very often. And one of the girls was so cute. She came in and she had her nails gorgeous. She's got them done, beautiful acrylics, stunning nails. And I loved it, but she couldn't make a fist to punch, and it was a fight club. She had to be able to make a fist, and she couldn't do it. Her nails were doing this, and I was like, okay, what do I do as the hair, makeup, art directing person? I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? We were trying to find ways around it, and finally, Omri's like, we gotta see if we can get rid of those nails because she can't even put her hands right. It doesn't look right. And so I pulled her aside and I'm like, hey, this is super awkward, but like, is there anything we can do with your nails right now? Because honestly, they just don't really fit the aesthetic of the film, and you can't even really make a fist. And God bless her. She goes, oh, I don't even like these. Bit them off. I watched her crunch, crunch, crunch her acrylics, which was insane, but also it was kind of cool to see. She's just like, yeah, that's fine. I'm an actor. I care more about the project than I do about these ugly nails that I don't even like. And I was like, I like your nails. She's like, I don't. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And so we actually let that go to our favor. We had let the cracked nails be on top of it. We didn't even change it. We let it just be the cracked nails on top. And it added to this crazy aesthetic that we ended up having for this film. We had this very over the top, exaggerated, hyper uh, like feminine, hyper colorful look. And now we had these crazy colored nails that did kind of match the vibe, but they were all cracked and destroyed. So it really kind of showed we had this beautiful feminine side that was now being destroyed, cracked by violence and aggression, essentially, which fit the story really well. And then I was also in charge of the makeup, which we love. And so we did some crazy, this was very much back when smoky eye was all the rage. So we did very much like rave smoky eye makeup. I wish I had some videos or photos of these girls because they looked crazy good. They looked really fun, and they really felt like they were not from our world. They felt like they were in a different world, like a hyper future, something that wasn't really part of our normal timeline. They were like very much out there, very overly exaggerated. We did lots of glitters, lots of shiny, like sweaty, glistening, which is not what you really want in most films. You want them to look very smooth and not shiny, but we wanted them to look sweaty and messy and gross, and they turned out so pretty. We had one of the main girls, one who broke her nails off. We had her in a little unbuttoned Daisy Dukes, like the little shorts. I don't know if that's the right term for them anymore. But she had them in like little hot pants, maybe hot shorts. I don't know. And then we had her in one of Carlie's spiky bras. She looked super cute, super great, super like grunge. And then we had the other girl who had the most beautiful, fine blonde hair, and it was so clean and so fine. And I had to go in there with like hairspray and a teasing comb, and I was like frizzing her hair up. And by the time she got out, her hair was like added a good inch and a half onto her head, maybe 2. Like, it was big, big hair. And she was like, looked crazy. And it really helped her get into character. She really felt more out of character because she was very much like normally very pretty, very reserved. But then we kind of let her express herself through hair and makeup and got to go really over the top and really exaggerate. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I really do appreciate you guys joining and letting me explain to you guys what art decoration is like, what working on hair and makeup in a film is very much like, what it is to work with other departments such as wardrobe. And I was glad that I got you a face reveal of Omri so you guys could see who he was and get to know more of my classmates. Very fun to be able to share this with you and make sure you guys get to start knowing my world and the world of this documentary series so you can get to kind of know everybody. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Make sure you are following. Thank you so much for being here. Leave a comment down below what kind of questions you'd like to know about film school, and we will see if we can get to them. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!